Squidward's suicide. I'm sure a lot of people know about Squidward's suicide, you know, blah blah, whole messed up creepypasta with Nickelodeon Studios, but some guy who interned there. Anyway, it's OfficalHamtaro here for the HartnettHorrorFiles crew, and I'm reading Squidward's suicide. A little bit of warning though, if you have a really, really weak stomach, go watch something else. Watch something less horrifying than this story. This story possibly may not be worse than Cupcakes or Jeff the Killer or anything like that, but still, it's pretty bad. So if you have a weak stomach, click away from this video, and let's begin. I just want to start off by saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course. Most internships aren't. But it did have some perks beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would go crazy over it. Now, since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the season's full premiere that set everyone and everything back several months. Me and two other interns were in the editing room along with the lead animators and sound editors for the final cut. We received a copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't final yet, animators ought to put a mock title card, sort of an inside joke for us with phony, oftentimes lewd titles such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of Rockabye Bivol. Damn it. When SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scout, nothing particularly funny but work-related chuckles, so when we saw the title card read Squidward's suicide, we didn't think it more than a morbid joke. One of the interns with a small throat laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music plays as normal. Sort of begins with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops yelling at him to keep it down as he has a concert that night. He's practicing. Oh, bless me. SpongeBob says okay and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash screen shot comes up and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things begin to seem off. Oh god. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, the sound is synced up with animation, so yes, that's not common. Well, apparently. Okay. So yes, that's not common. But when he stops playing, the sound finishes as if the skip never happened. There's a slight murmuring in this crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common in this show, but you could very clearly hear malice in. Squidward's in full frame and looks visually afraid. The shot goes to the crowd with SpongeBob in the center frame, and he too is booing, very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing, though. What is odd is that everyone had hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed, clearly not shots of real people, like something a bit more than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question the appeal of children, yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting on the edge of his bed. This might be the worst part about this. Yeah, this is where the upsetting part happens. Looking very forlorn. The view out of his porthole windows of a night sky, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is, at this point, there is no sound, literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It is as if the speakers were turned off, though their status showed them working perfectly. He just sat there, blinking, in this silence for about 30 seconds. Then he started to sob softly. He put his hand tentacles over his eyes and cried quietly for a full minute more. All the while, the sound in the background, very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible, it sounded like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly began to zoom in on his face by slow. I mean, it's only noticeable if you look at 10 shots, if you look at shots 10 seconds apart, side by side. His sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself for a split second and back normal. The wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is the sound and Squidward sobbing. Sounded real. As if the sound wasn't coming from the speaker, but the speaker as a whole, so the sound was coming through from the other side. As good a sound as the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce sound of that quality. Below, the sound of the wind and sobbing very faint, and somehow something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. We watched this show twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I had things to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently. Something flashed over the screen, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible, and this is where you probably already read it, but this is where you just want to click off the video if you have a weak stomach. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled and bloody, one eye dangling over his upturned face, popped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open and his entrails laying beside him. He was lying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of a photographer. There was no crime tape, no evidence, tags or markers, and the angle was completely off by a shot designed to be evidence. It seemed the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were of course mortified, but pressed on, hoping that it was just a sick joke. The screen flipped back, and Squidward still sobbing louder than before, half body and frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blow was also done in a hyper-realistic fashion. Why can't I just say realistic? Looking as if can't I say blood? Looking as if you'd get blood on your fingers. The wind sounded down as if it were that of a gale blowing through the forest. There was even a snapping sound of branches, the laughing, a deep baritone lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were. Oh God. We all were, but we knew we had to. This time the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach, her barrettes in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and popped, naked except for underpants. Her entrails were piled, and on top of her above, another crude cut along her back. Again, the body was on the street. The photographer's shadow was visible, very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit, and one intern, the only female in the room, ran out. The show resumed. About 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent as it all sounded. Like it was when this scene started. He put his tentacles down and his eyes were now done in hyper-realism. To say realism, like the others were in the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing. This time, not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, and most fear-inducing of all is his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep voice laughing, and this time the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it before it backed up. This time the photo was a boy, but the same age, but this time the scene was different. The entrails were just being pulled out from his stomach, wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangled, the blood trickling down, and the animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different, but we couldn't tell what. He went on to the next, same thing. He went back to the first, played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animating sounders gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were fighting, but they were played as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hands slowly lift out the guts, and we saw the kid's eye focus on it. We even saw 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call in the credits. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused. That's why he was called down. So the editor just continued the episode. Once the theater returned, all screaming, all sound again stopped. But we were just staring at the viewer, full frame face for about 3 seconds. The shot he panned out, and the deep voice said, "Do it." And we see in Squidward's hands a shotgun. He immediately pulls the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Again, they say realistic blood. Please say blood, or I guess realistic works. There he goes. And brain mass splatters the wall behind him in his bed. And he flies back at the forest. The last 5 seconds of this episode shows his body on the bed on his side, one eye dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the heck was going on. Most people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Being noticed twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind and caused me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was that the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio here. The CTO was called and analyzed what had happened. The analysis of the video did show it was edited over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before we started viewing. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware as well as glitches. As the timestamp may have been glitched and showed the wrong time, but everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened, and to this day, nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child scene was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I never believed in unexplainable phenomena before, but now that I have something happen and I can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence, I think twice about things. That was Squidward Suicide, everybody. Pretty good creepypasta. I mean, maybe if they didn't have to say hyper-realism so many times, you know. And I hope everybody got a good laugh out of the freaking thing right there that says normal porn for normal people. I really do, because this story would disturb the crap out of a lot of people. Oh man. Why didn't I just do a game? Well, this is a different creepypasta. Alright guys, this is OfficalHamtaro from the HartnettHorrorFiles crew signing out. Oh! Say signing out too early and I forgot to say some stuff. If y'all have a game for us that you want us to play, put it down in the comments, message us, and we'll get right on it.